Hello everyone, I'm Laura Barat from laurabaratastrologer.com, and today's video is on the moon and the ascendant. I'm doing a series of the planets through the houses, and the first one, of course, is the ascendant, the first house. Probably the most important house, absolutely, okay? So, I want to explain too how the ascendant and the descendant is basically an axis, okay? It's a plane, and it's a line drawn across the Earth plane from the eastern horizon to the western horizon, connecting the ecliptic, okay? That is a plane of the body. That is the path we walk. We're born. You have the ascendant where you're born, and your body walks a path in life to the descendant where you die. The seventh house is considered the house of death. It's one of the Maraka or death-inflicting houses. And it's basically just the end of life. It's where the sun sets, right? Okay. So that's what it symbolically means. So you have a path in life that you walk. You have outer phenomena that comes to you in your everyday life. But there's also another plane, okay? There's another axis, and that's the axis of the nodes. That is a plane of consciousness because we need the moon and the sun to create the nodes, but they also are able to make the nodes or make the lights disappear. They swallow the lights, as they refer to it. So it's, that is the plane of consciousness. Rahu is the birth of consciousness. It's the new experiences that we need to go through on planet Earth. It's the birth of the mind. Okay. Ketu is the death of the mind. What is the death of the mind? That's when you have liberation. That's when you have no more jiva or, you don't have an ego, you don't have certain sanskaras, you don't have karmas, okay? And that's why Ketu represents liberation. So there's two different paths you walk in your life. And the ascendant is a huge part of that, all right? So Parashara says that, so it's the ascendant, according to Parashara, is the body and appearance, the cognizance and caste, as well as strength and weakness, and that has to do with the body, okay? Comfort, pain, also having to do with the body, and one's true state are looked at from the Lagna intersecting Bhava, which is that's the ascendant, okay? And one's one true state, that's the general personality, the general way you are. So any planets in the ascendant is a huge part of your personality. Okay. And also the body and appearance, any planet there will affect your appearance quite strongly. And cognizance. So what is cognizance? It's knowledge. It's, assessing something, it's bringing something, awareness of something, right? And so what that means is the ascendant is your awareness of your surroundings, and how you take in that information from your senses. And it's filtered through a lens of the ascendant. So if you're, an Aquarius rising, it's filtered through that lens of Aquarius and whatever Aquarius means. But a planet in the ascendant will affect that quite strongly as well, even more. Okay. So planets in the ascendant are extremely important in the personality and the way a person cognizes information from their senses. The moon. Okay. So when the moon is in the ascendant, you have a life path of the moon. What does that mean? The moon is the public. You have a life's path of dealing with the public, a life's path of dealing with women in general. All right. Not in a romantic way it can be that too, but in just all different types of ways that you usually are dealing with women. You have a life's path of diplomacy. The moon is a planet. Parashara says the moon is sweet speech. Okay. One of the names of the moon is Mrigashira, which is like the nakshatra, which is a deer or a spotted deer. And deers have very gentle natures. So the moon is diplomatic, sweet speech, and gentle natured. The moon is a planet of royalty. Okay. It's the feminine side of royalty. You have the sun who is the king and the moon is the queen. So that means that you have an authority, in your life. So you're walking a path of authority, but it's an authority in a diplomatic way. An authority of taking in others' opinions, others' feelings, the way other people want to live their lives, and bringing it all together in a very diplomatic way and being able to rule in that way. Okay. So then that's how the moon rules. The moon rules through diplomacy and through kindness and through being gentle-natured. The moon is adaptable. That's another thing. The moon is round, Parashara says. So the moon is able to roll with the changes. The moon is very adaptable. So a really nice planet. Now, it can also give a roundish appearance to the person, when the moon is in the ascendant. And, let's see what else do I have. Oh, and the moon is it's your self-image. It's how you see yourself in the world. Okay. When people react to you, the moon is a receptive planet. So it takes that in and it sees itself in the world. When the moon is afflicted, that means when the moon is with Saturn, or Rahu or, in, a Dhisthana house, but even then it can be in really good shape. But if it's afflicted, the person doesn't react to their environment in an appropriate way or in a way that is, that they see it, they have a faulty vision of reacting to their environment. They have a faulty way of doing that. They don't actually see the reality sometimes. But the moon being the self-image, it usually presents a diplomatic, a charismatic, or a glamorous self-image. Okay? The moon likes to make connections to people. The moon is very social. The moon is a Vaishya. It's a Vaishya caste. Okay? So Vaishyas are people who want to be recognized and appreciated for their skills and their business sense, and also make their living. They're business people. They're artisans. They are professionals. Okay, that's a Vaishya caste. So the moon and Mercury are both Vaishya planets. All right, so you're going to have that. Usually when the moon is in the ascendant, the person's walking a path of Vaishya, because the Parashara says that the ascendant is caste. Okay, that's not the only thing that makes caste, but it is a pretty it adds to it. It's one of the major components of your caste. Okay, then you can really tell a lot by the moon, by some of its Sanskrit names and what they mean. Okay, so women, being in social situations where you are either a professional or a business person, diplomacy, self-image. The other thing is music. The moon rules music because the moon is rhythm. All right, it waxes and wanes. It rules over water and the tides. So when people have strong moons in their as an identity factor, and any planet in the ascendant is an identity factor, they can be musicians or really like music, or if the moon is your Atmakaraka or joined your Atmakaraka or something like that, or in your Pada or Upapada. Okay. Now the other thing, one of the things, names of the moon is Rajanipati, okay? And that means Lord of the Night. It's also, there's another name that means Night Maker. Usually, if you have the moon in the ascendant, you like to be awake at night. The night is where you come alive, okay? You work better at night. You're not a morning person like the sun, okay? Then the moon is Samudraka. That means oceanic. And that's obvious because the moon does rule over the tides and water. And the moon, because of that, because it's adaptable and it rules the ocean and it's oceanic, the moon makes a person moody. Okay, sometimes they can be full of life and very giving, and sometimes they can wane and be a dark moon and not feel like or feel down or depressed. But it does cause the person to fluctuate in their moods quite strongly. Okay. The other thing about the moon is it's Vidhu, Vidhu. Vidhu, and that means lovesick and lonely. And Parashara also says that the moon is lovesick. One of the ways you can see people having affairs is when they have an afflicted moon. Because the moon makes you want to be loved. And even though you're getting love, you still feel lovesick. Like the moon in the Vedic myth had the 27 wives of the nakshatras. And then he also went and had an affair with Jupiter's wife. So he was never satisfied. And he always felt lonely and lovesick. And that's kind of a quality of the moon. And it doesn't mean that, if the moon's in the ascendant, you're going to have affairs. It doesn't mean that at all. It has to be, afflicted, and there has to be other things in the chart. But it does tend to make the person feel lonely at times, when they're in their waning phase. Okay. And then another name for the moon is Soma, which means juice. Okay, and that is the Amrita, or the life-giving, nourishing fluids. It rules all fluids. It also rules the juices in plants. The moon rules growth. Okay, and so the juices in the plants themselves, vegetation, moon rules all those things. And that can make the person more towards like to be around or immersed within plants. It also rules the blood, okay? And animals, living beings, living things. They can like nature more, okay? They enjoy being around nature. So yeah, that's all of those things that the moon rules. Generally too, the moon rules the face. Okay, so the moon is exalted in Taurus, and Taurus is also the face. How you take in, how you get what you need. The moon is getting your needs met. So the moon is very concerned with having their needs met. And when they're not, they can understand what it is that's not giving them what they need. And usually they're able to kind of let go of that thing. Okay. If it's not giving them what they need, they're very adept at doing that. The sun, just to give you a contrast, the sun is the opposite. They're like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want. This is my vision. I'm going to go for it. Whether they don't care about getting their needs met. Do you see that they don't need to have, or the sun doesn't need to have his needs met. He just goes for what he wants as a straight arrow, and that's it. But the moon needs to have certain things in their life. And when the moon is in the ascendant, or it's an identity factor, you understand what it is that you need from life. Okay? So that's for my moon in the ascendant. Now I want to make sure that I covered everything about that, because that's a pretty important placement. Any planet in the ascendant is going to be, oh, another thing. The moon is intuitive. The moon is full of knowing. That's what Parashara says. So that means intuition. They just know. They don't need to go study something. They don't need to, gather a bunch of facts about something like Mercury does. They just know. Okay. That's why it's called feminine intuition, woman's intuition, because the moon rules women in general. So, they are able to immediately know the truth about a situation. They're very intuitive that way. So that's another important quality that someone will have when they have the moon in the ascendant. Now, obviously, if the moon is afflicted, some of those things can get warped that I was just talking about. If you have moon with Saturn or moon with Rahu, that can warp those things a little bit because of the affliction to the moon. But the moon has no enemies. So the moon is not going to be starving or thirsty in any of the signs by himself. All right. And I just want to clarify too, when I talk about the planets, I always say he or him. The reason I do that is because Parashara says the planets are, male, and then they have their consorts, which is their Shakti, their power, which are their female consorts. That's why I say that. But there are, in other traditions, the moon is considered female with Venus, and they are, Parashara does say they're feminine planets too, but he calls them he. So, or they rule over the feminine aspect of things. And in that regard, that's moon, Venus, and Rahu. Those are completely feminine planets. Then you have Saturn and Mercury, which are neuters, and then the rest. Oh, and Ketu is a neuter as well. And then Mercury really depends on what planet. If he's with a planet, he can give more masculine influences, but he's considered to be a neuter. And then the Sun, Jupiter, and Mars are masculine. Okay. So that is it today for the moon and the ascendant. Thank you for watching. Bye.